I'm Chandler.
And I'm Celeste.
And this is True North Terror.
Welcome back.
Welcome. Would this one come out after
This one will be
New Year's?
after
Happy New Year's! Wait, there's probably one more before this. Anyways, Happy New Year.
Well, yeah.
Anyways, yeah. We'll
What
do
else?
it for the next couple episodes.
Yeah. We don't know what's going on right now.
Just for shits and giggles.
What's your New Year's resolution?
Fix this fucking microphone.
That's a good start.
Well, Mom asked me for one the other day.
Why?
She said I need to be better at answering messages.
Well,
just as a keynote for the start of the year, it's not even 2026, and I have 226 unread text messages and 7 missed calls. I'm really bad.
that gives me so much anxiety.
It's I think I have 6,000 emails.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We could not be more opposite. It's actually crazy.
Because it's day to day for me. And if I'm in so many fucking family group chats that just girl like bing 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 bing.
Open it up so it's red.
I could do that.
Yeah.
But I'm lazy.
Oh,
and I would rather spend time doing anything else.
I've got the anxiety.
They need to add an option on here to just like clear all notifications on your phone.
It would not take you long if you did it regularly.
Yeah. But anyways, the people who I need to answer, I answer. And most people who need something right away from me will call me. And I don't typically miss phone calls.
You missed my phone call today.
Yeah, I was cooking or cleaning or something. But anyways.
Well, it sounds like you don't answer the people you need to answer if Mom is saying you need to answer.
Yeah, no, I'm really bad at answering text messages. But if she called me and asked me about something, I would get her an answer.
Well, you hear that, Mom?
I told her, I was like, you need to call me. And she's like, no, you need to answer your fucking phone. I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. Sorry.
Noted.
Yeah, no, Mom overrules whatever I think. So
yes, true.
That's one of my resolutions is to be better at communication with people.
Mom is always right. My New Year's resolution last year was to be kinder to myself. Which I think I mostly was. I haven't made one for next year. I think, well, I want to lose probably 10 more pounds.
Jesus.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't have any really last year I was just be kinder to myself. This year I haven't really thought of anything. I think my goal for the pod is to get to 500 subscribers.
That's a cool goal for the year.
Because we've only been at it for a few months. And we'll have over 100, I think.
Do you really?
Now.
Between all socials?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I feel like 500 is doable.
Yeah, that's doable. That's definitely doable. Mm-hmm. We got this.
So that's my goal for the pod.
Obviously, we can't do it without you guys. Please hit the subscribe or follow or whatever platform you're on.
Yeah, share with your friends.
Yeah.
We want to hang out with you. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a really sad story.
Oh boy.
It involves a little girl being murdered.
Oh shit.
My least favorite kinds of stories, but
yeah, that's terrible.
It was just recently solved, like almost 30 years later.
Holy shit.
And I like those stories because I think that this is solved through ancestry DNA, which I think is fascinating. And it also has a wrongful conviction involved, which I also have become kind of passionate about.
Yeah.
I just think it's crazy that evidence can just be construed and people can be convinced,
Yeah.
even though it really doesn't add up. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, we'll get into it. So our storybook begins in. Are you trying to get the cat?
Hey, don't eat that. Hold on. He's gonna try to eat my laptop stuff. You go ahead.
Binks.
You
Binksy. He should. Oh, Binksy Boo. He's been so needy today since Blake isn't here. He's like, I need attention. No one's carrying me around like a baby in a basket. Okay. Our story begins in Queensville, Ontario in October of 1984. Queensville, it was a quaint and quiet farming community located an hour north of Toronto with only one railroad crossing, a convenience store, and a few homes spread out. It was a safe town, the kind of place where kids would play outside and ride their bikes all over town, returning home at sunset. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone looked out for each other, especially the kids. Which just reminds me of the town I grew up in.
Mm.
On October 3rd, 1984, 9-year-old Christine Jessup rode the school bus home as she always did. She stepped off and began her walk home on Leslie Street. Christine was a sweet, loving, and sometimes stubborn little girl that loved her bike and adored her stuffed animals and had a ridiculously adorable high-pitched laugh. She was a slight and small girl for her age, but was like a little energizer bunny and endlessly curious. She loved animals, baseball, and birthday parties.
That's nice.
The day she went missing, she was wearing blue corduroy pants and a blue zip-up sweater. Her mom, Janet, and her brother, Kenneth, weren't home yet when she got home from school. When Janet and Kenneth returned home, the vibe was off. Something wasn't quite right.
Hmm.
Christine's dad, Bob, was not living at home. He had just been convicted of defrauding a family member and was serving 18 months in prison, and he was his third week into his sentence.
Whoa.
The day that Christine went missing, Janet and Kenneth were going to visit Bob in prison at the Metro East Detention Center. Kenneth was 14, so he was 5 years older than Christine. Christine begged to go and see her dad in prison. She had just started playing the recorder. Oh,
God.
I'm dreading that.
It's coming up.
And was desperate to show her dad. But Janet didn't think that prison was a place to bring a 9-year-old little girl, and despite Christine's pleas, she sent her mom off, or she sent her mom sent her off to school instead.
Mm.
Janet called her friend Heather Hoover for support. The Jessop and Hoover family were close, and Janet was leaning on Heather as her main support system while Bob was in prison. The Jessop family had eaten dinner there only a few nights earlier. Heather heard Christine pitching a fit in the background, and Janet explained that she was upset she couldn't visit Bob.
Sorry, that's your foot. Oh, that was a dog.
The evening before, Ken's baseball team had won a huge trophy, and so Janet agreed to let Ken come along to show his dad his medal and tell him all about the game. Ken also had a dentist appointment in the city, so he was going to be tagging along anyway. Janet gave Christine a heads up that when she got home from school that day, they may not be home quite yet, but they wouldn't be any longer than 20 minutes behind her. When Janet and Kenneth arrived home at 4:10, they found Christine's bike laying outside and her backpack and jacket hung. But they couldn't seem to find Christine. They hoped she was out playing with friends and would return home, but something in their gut didn't feel quite right. Nightfall came, and it was clear that something was wrong when Christine had not returned home. Janet and Kenneth started calling around asking her friends' parents if they had seen her. No one had seen her, but one of her friends, Leslie's mom, explained that the girls had made plans to play with their dolls at the park, but Christine never came. Christine liked to go to the convenience store to buy gum, so they stopped there as well and were told that she had been there around 3:45 and purchased a pack of gum and was in her normal chatty and happy mood. This was the last time that anyone saw Christine alive. Janet and Ken were both thrown off by Christine's bike being laid down outside. She was super proud of her bike and would usually put it away nicely with the kickstand or leaning up against something, not laid on the ground. Her jacket and backpack were hung up, but she couldn't reach the hook they were hung on, so this was also strange. They also noticed that their mail had been brought in and left on the table, and their beagle Freckles was acting very strange, timid, and nervous. He was Christine's constant companion and was definitely shaken. All of these things seemed innocent enough until Christine didn't return home. At about 8:30, Janet called the police and reported Christine missing. Police were immediately worried as well and started to go door to door knocking and asking if anyone had seen her, but no one had. Some officers went to the Jessop home to gather a statement, but this was a very small police force that was not prepared for a crime of this scale, and they did not seal off the home or gather any evidence from the house. Police used the local fire station to set up a command center as 350 volunteers and searchers went out looking for her. There were tracking dogs, people rode on horses and dirt bikes to cover more ground, and there was also helicopters and airplanes searching a 10 square mile area of mostly woods and farmland.
Wow.
Because I think, like, they're mostly assuming at this point that she probably walked off.
Yeah. Maybe got stuck somewhere.
Yeah. The media interviewed Ken and his grandpa Gordon outside the front of their home. Ken was in complete distress, pleading for help. Kenneth was known to be an amazing big brother who was protective of his little sister and always took great care of her. Bob, the dad, was released on compassion so he could be there for his family and aid in the search. The York Regional Police put out a statement that it was looking grim. They had not uncovered a single thing to lead them to Christine. Months went on, and there were no answers for Christine's family until December 31st, when a hiker found the remains of what appeared to be a little girl along a farmer's field. She was discovered in an area of Brock Township near a wooded area about 40 kilometers south of her home in Queensville. He found her little decomposed body, still wearing her blue sweater, but her pants, shoes, and underwear were laying near her feet.
Oh.
Once he reported to police, the police contacted Christine's family to let them know that a body had been found and they thought that it might be Christine. Fortunately, it was not hard to identify her as she was still wearing the same clothes as the day she went missing, and her brand new recorder was near her body, labeled with her name on it. Investigators from both York Regional Police and Ontario Regional Police arrived on the scene even though her body was quite badly decomposed. They noticed there were clear signs of sexual assault and rape, and her murder was in a horrific way. Little Christine had been violently raped and stabbed at least 5 times in her chest and back. Semen was found on her pants and her underwear. Since it was late December, the ground was frozen. They had to thaw the area around her with blowtorches and hair dryers to remove her. Around her body, there were also cigarette butts discovered. The media got word of the discovery and broke the story that evening as cameras and neighbors gathered in front of the Jessop home, lighting candles and flowers along the porch and front yard. The Jessop family was in complete shock as the police asked Janet and Ken to walk them through the events and details of October 3rd again. The police scoured the area where Christine was found, including asking nearby homeowners if they heard or saw anything suspicious. They were horrified when a woman said she had heard screams crying for help the night that Christine went missing. She did report it to police, but they didn't think anything of it. Since the area she was found in was a different police detachment, they weren't even aware that Christine was missing and had no reason to be suspicious. At the Jessop home, the police also asked Janet to make a list of people she was suspicious or concerned about. Fourth on her list was a man named Guy Paul Moran. The police decided that this was their main suspect. Moran was 24 years old and their next door neighbor. He was a strange guy who didn't really fit into the community. He'd played clarinet and was a beekeeper. He was working in Toronto at the time at a furniture finishing factory. One of the things that detectives latched onto was that he never participated in helping look for Christine, despite pretty much the entire community looking for her. He also was one of the only members of the community that didn't attend the funeral. But also, usually, like, killers do want to participate in looking and
they
stuff.
try to
But
be over helpful.
this was kind of before that thought.
Yeah.
There was no beef between the Jessop and Moran family. They weren't friends or close, but they would wave to each other. Police immediately set up surveillance for Guy Paul, hoping to confirm their suspicions. The other names on the list and tips and leads were loosely pursued, but none seemed to fit the crime. But the more the investigators pursued Guy Paul, the more the evidence pointed away from him, but they didn't want to see that.
Hmm.
Guy Paul said he arrived home at about 4:25, but Janet and Ken arrived home at 4:10. The police tried to convince Janet and Ken that they were just confused and didn't arrive home at 4:10, but Ken was adamant because he remembered looking at the clock in the kitchen reading 4:10. So he was like, no, 100% we got home at 4:10. The police also used evidence of a positive alert from a police dog. On the night that Christine went missing, the police interviewed the Moran family briefly. During this time, they had a police dog with them. They had the dog Ryder sniff one of Christine's sweaters. The dog alerted on several items, including her bike, but also the Moran car. This made the police suspicious that Christine was in the car at some point. Meanwhile, the reports of the screaming ate away at Kenneth and Janet, and they decided to go out to where Christine was found. Janet walked to the house where the woman heard the screams and told Ken to tell her if she could hear the screaming. Janet started screaming, help me," over and over again. Kenneth heard her, but he lied to his mom and said he couldn't hear her. He was horrified that it probably was Christine that the lady heard that night,
Oh no.
and he knew his mom would be absolutely devastated knowing this. They then switched positions, and he went up to the house, and his mom listened for him, but he didn't make a single noise. He was like, I'm not gonna scream because I don't want her to hear me scream.
Wow.
Christine was buried with her favorite doll, but Ken couldn't shake the feeling that parts of her were missing. He was having nightmares that part of her still lay on the frozen ground. He asked his mom to check in with the police, and they insisted that they had gathered everything from the crime scene, but something was calling him, so he decided to go back to where his sister was found. After walking for only a few minutes, he found a small pile of tiny bones. He also found garbage left by police, such as coffee cups. He picked up the tiny bones and put them into a dirty coffee cup and drove them to the police station. The FBI Behavioral Science Unit was contacted to see if they could also help break the case. They put together a profile saying that he was likely between 19 to 26, a night owl, and lived in the area. They said he would have to be very intelligent to get Christine into the car without a commotion. They suggested that maybe the killer used her recorder as a talking point to gain her trust and interest. In February of 1985, the police continued to pursue Guy Paul as their lead suspect and asked him to come and talk to officers in a car while they recorded the conversation unbeknownst to Guy Paul. During the conversation, Guy Paul recalled an interaction with his dad the night that Christine went missing, where he said, I bet that little girl Christine is gone. The police continued the conversation, and Guy Paul said that Christine was a sweet, innocent little girl, but that all girls would grow up to be corrupt.
That's a weird thing to say.
Despite the timeline not adding up and Guy Paul having a solid alibi of still being at work and not logistically being able to return home until about 4:30, the police were convinced that Guy Paul was their killer, and in April of 1985, they charged him with abduction and the murder of Christine Jessup.
Idiots.
Yeah, they just really, yeah, he said some weird stuff, but he's a weird guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
this is reading Damien Eccles.
and also, he's a weird guy that's talking to police, and police are probably leading him,
Yeah, coercing him.
Mm-hmm. The Jessop family felt relief and were hopeful for justice. They had been grieving for months and just wanted a resolution and justice for their daughter and their sister.
That's not how you get it, though.
Guy Paul was arrested on April 22nd, 1985, as he arrived for band practice. His trial began in 1986, and the Crown's case was pretty shaky. It relied on some fibers that were consistent with his clothing from the day, a shaky timeline, and the fact that he was weird. Also included in evidence were 3 blonde hairs found in Moran's car that could have belonged to Christine. There were also dark hairs caught in her necklace that could have belonged to Guy Paul, but none of this was ever 100% confirmed. After 4 weeks of testimony, the jury saw through the Crown's weak case and found him not guilty. But the Crown was still convinced it was him, so they filed an appeal immediately. 3 full years after Christine went missing, the Ontario Court of Appeal ordered a new trial to begin on May 28, 1990. Moran's new lawyers appealed against the decision for a new trial, but ultimately the Supreme Court sided with the Crown based on the belief that the judge instructed the jury improperly and some of the evidence. Which is why I have to go back to be a witness at a trial coming up.
Right.
Because that's why he got a new trial, because they're saying that the judge improperly instructed the jury on some of the evidence. On May 28th, the new trial began and lasted until July 30th of 1992. Of course, the Crown found some of the jailhouse informants for their new trial, as they always do. Guy Paul had apparently confessed to his cellmate, who went on as a witness and testified that Guy Paul confessed the crimes to him. The Crown really hammered in that Guy Paul was a weird and unpredictable guy, and that he lived next to Christine and she would probably trust him. They also pushed that Christine was so excited about her new recorder and Guy Paul played the clarinet, so maybe he used that to lure her. In the late 80s and early 90s, forensic sciences were not nearly as robust as it is today, and a lot of the conclusions of the evidence were subjective opinions, not really science. For example, the fibers of clothing that they claimed were Guy Paul's were called definite matches, but the methods to determine that were subjective and not definite. This was also before DNA testing, however, they did have blood type testing, so they compared the semen found on Christine's underwear to Guy Paul's blood type and said it was a similar blood type, but not a match, but also not a match.
Fuck.
So basically inconclusive. Guy Paul also was not a smoker, which would have made sense with all the cigarette butts found around Christine's body.
Yeah.
In response to this, a police officer claimed that they were probably his. After this admission, the cigarette butt evidence disappeared. So one of the cops is like, oh yeah, I was smoking there and I just was tossing cigarette butts all over the crime scene.
Dipshit.
And then after that, the evidence just magically disappeared because it didn't match Guy Paul. His defense lawyers also argued that he was insane, and if he did kill Christine, it was in a blind moment of psychosis and he couldn't remember the events. They had a number of psychologists testify that he's mentally unstable and likely had schizophrenia. He had apparently told them that he had never had sex before and that masturbation was the only way to rid the body of poisons. He was also apparently heavily controlled and influenced by his dad and lived in a very isolated life. Guy Paul's defense really challenged and questioned the biological evidence, saying that the presence of semen did not prove that he was the one to rape her since it was inconclusive. They also tried to say that the semen could have been deposited at another time, basically saying that Christine could have been sexually active.
Shut the fuck up.
You know what? I get it. Defense lawyers, you gotta do your job. But
scum of the earth.
That's fucked up. Kenny said at this point he was 9 and Christine was 4. He testified to the court that Christine understood what sexual abuse was and never would have just allowed anyone to do it to her. He said, that after it was done, he told Christine, this was very wrong. I'm sorry that this happened. And, don't let anyone do that to you.
Oh, it's terrible.
She was a spicy little girl that wouldn't just go with anyone. After this testimony, Ken's life began to unravel. The media spun the story to say that Ken had raped his sister. Ken's testimony was made solely to protect his sister, but instead it resulted in headlines of him raping his sister. Ken was only 17 years old when he testified. He was made the villain after years of grief and guilt. During the trial, the defense also discovered that the Crown had not provided the information that Kenneth had found additional bones at the crime scene. This made the defense question if the autopsy was mishandled or even completed improperly. The defense ordered for Christine to be exhumed for a second autopsy. Desperate for answers, the Jessop family allowed the exhumation. During her second autopsy, it was found that only 94% of her skeleton had been recovered from the scene where she was found. Since they were already doing another autopsy, the medical examiner decided to boil the bones to clean them to reevaluate how many stab wounds she suffered. The first autopsy showed that she was stabbed 5 times, but the second autopsy had an even more horrific conclusion. She had been stabbed over 200 times.
Ugh.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you go from 5 to 200?
Yeah, like,
Who taught you to count?
you done fucked. She also suffered from a broken nose and horrific injuries to her face from blunt force trauma.
No.
There were deep wounds across her spine and ribs, and extensive damage to her neck. She also had defensive wounds on her arms and her hands as she tried to fight back. But little 40-pound Christine was overpowered with someone with a pocket knife. After 2 years of court, on July 30th, 1992, the jury found Guy Paul Moran guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Despite the evidence and case against him being questionable and shaky, the confidence of expert witnesses was enough to convince the jury. However, a few years later, in the mid-1990s, when DNA evidence started to really evolve, the investigators agreed to allow the evidence to be retested using brand new technology that could definitely confirm someone's identity through genetic coding. They still had some preserved samples of Christine's underwear, so they submitted it for testing. And of course, it came back. It was definitely not Guy Paul's semen, and he was acquitted and fully exonerated in January of 1995 after nearly a full decade of serving time in prison for a crime he did not commit. The Jessop family was devastated. They were convinced by the police that they had the right guy and justice had been served. This opened up the wounds again for the family, and the status of the case went back to unsolved. The wrongful conviction also brought on an independent inquiry led by Justice Fred Kaufman. The purpose of this inquiry was to find out how a little girl's murder investigation could have led to the incarceration of an innocent man while the real killer remained at large. This report is like, it made a big difference on how we do things today. So it's actually very interesting. It's a major reform. It ended up with 119 recommendations for police reform. And so it's basically, it was huge in changing how we treat victims, witnesses, and the accused now. Some of the reports or the findings were basically determined that there was tunnel vision in police work, and when they set their sights on someone, it was hard to look at the evidence objectively as they wanted it to point to one specific person. So they would ignore some pieces and then only use other pieces of evidence so that it would cater to their story. The report also said that jailhouse informants were not reliable as they were usually motivated to testify for personal gain, such as privileges or early release. The report also recommended that only conclusive DNA evidence should be used in trial, not anything that can be based on someone's opinion, and if that evidence has to be used, it should be made clear that it is not conclusive. The report also determined that the evidence for the fibers was not tested even under the current standards available at that time. There is also evidence of mishandling and broken chain of command for the evidence. It was also determined that collection of the evidence was not done properly. The fact that they used blow torches to thaw out the ground could have destroyed evidence. They should have just taken her out of the ground with the frozen ground.
Jesus.
But the most damning thing that this report revealed, that was one of the lead officers kept 2 books of evidence. One was events that actually happened, and the other was a version of events that would be able to secure a conviction. And he only submitted the falsified version for evidence and withheld the other book of actual events. Jesus.
Wow.
This resulted in a major revamp for court proceedings, demanding that all information and evidence should be available to both sides of the court. The report also demanded change for how the accused are treated in court. It said they should be introduced by their name, not the accused, and that they should be able to sit with their lawyers and essentially be treated fairly.
Right.
This Kaufman report literally reshaped law enforcement and the court system what we know it as today.
Jesus.
In 2018, Toronto police appointed Detective Steve Smith to head a cold case unit. Him and his team looked through Christine's file and tried to determine if there was anything they had not tried yet. There was preserved materials and evidence that had already cleared an innocent man, but could they use that same evidence to find the killer with modern technology? Steve went to a course about genetic genealogy and wondered if this could crack their case. This was, of course, how they had just caught the Golden State Killer, and he was determined to try it for Christine's case, but there was very little DNA evidence left. But he managed to get just enough to send down to the States to be tested, and amazingly, they were able to build a DNA profile. This company also had access to 23andMe, so they started the process of dwindling down the suspect pool from millions to only hundreds, working backwards. Investigators cross-referenced any names from familial
Familial. Yeah,
branches
right.
to their original file, and one name caught their attention: Calvin Hoover. Do you recognize the
No
Hoover
way.
name? When Christine was murdered in 1984, Calvin was known to the Jessops. His wife Heather knew the Jessop family and had actually talked to Janet the morning Christine went missing. Calvin was a friend of Christine's dad, Bob, and Heather had worked for Bob. When Heather was on the phone with Janet that morning, Janet let her know that Ken and her were going to visit Bob and asked if they had any messages to pass along. Heather was the one that could hear Christine protesting in the background, and when she asked why, Janet explained that Christine was upset that she wasn't coming to visit with them. And so basically, like, Heather and Calvin knew that Christine might be home for a little bit. All the police needed was a DNA sample. Did I say that wrong? Heather and Calvin knew that Christine would be home alone for a little bit.
Yeah.
All the police needed was a DNA sample from Calvin to make their case, but they hit a major roadblock. Calvin had committed suicide only a few years earlier in 2015.
Coward.
He had died by carbon monoxide poisoning in his garage.
Fuck you.
So the police went to the only place they thought they might have DNA from Calvin, the medical examiner that did his autopsy. And to their surprise, they still had a DNA sample. They had 2 vials of his blood. The police also learned that Calvin had a cabin only 5 kilometers from where little Christine was discovered.
Oh no.
But it had since been demolished. Calvin always remained close and in the know of the investigation. He helped search for her, he attended the funeral, and as the years went by, he started to unravel, starting to drink heavily, gamble, and use cocaine. His mental health declined, and Heather left with the kids in 1997 after he received a DUI and crashed his car. In 2014, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and crashed his truck in an apparent attempted suicide. The police are careful with what they say. They don't really come out and say, like, it's 100% a match, but they do say that if he was still alive, he would have been arrested because he was definitely the person that had raped and murdered her.
Wow.
On October 15th, 2020, Steve went to the Jessop home and sat with Janet and Ken as the news broke from the Toronto Police Headquarters. Chief James Raymer stood alongside a school picture of Christine and confirmed that they had identified the person responsible for Christine's abduction, rape, and murder. This all unraveled 36 years after Christine's murder, and Janet was getting older and was so relieved that she would die knowing who really did this to her daughter. Ken was only 14 when his sister disappeared, and her disappearance shaped his entire life. He struggled with addiction and short jail stints as he struggled to cope and find stability without answers. He also attempted suicide. Thanks to his mother's support, he was able to get clean once he had his answers and now sells wooden carvings at farmers markets. He has a dog that is his shadow and his best friend. Bob and Janet separated shortly after Christine was found, and he stepped away, carrying his grief privately. Janet passed away in March of 2024. Guy Paul also struggled after being wrongfully convicted. Despite a full acquittal, he still struggles to build a normal, stable life. If you want to learn more about the story, there's a new documentary on Crave that I watched for all of this. It's called the Christine Jessup story, and it's a 3-part documentary, and it has interviews with even her mom before she passed away. So
Wow. I think I saw it while I was scrolling through Crave the other day.
it was very good. It was very, very good. It's just crazy. I mean, it's so sad that just a strange guy was pinned for it.
Yeah.
Like this man that was a family friend. I don't think I mentioned it in the episode, but like Christine and her family, like her mom and brother, had just been at the Hoover's house a few nights before
You did say
for
that.
dinner.
You did say
Okay.
that.
And like she had told them, like, yeah, we're going to visit Bob in prison and whatever. But it's like this freaking Calvin guy probably literally went home and was like, oh yeah, your mom sent me. She actually changed her mind.
Yeah.
She wanted me to come pick you up to take you to see your dad or whatever. Like, it's probably so easy for him to get her in the car
Yeah.
because it was a trusted
So much
family
information.
friend. It's so fucking sad. I just don't know how anyone can do anything like that to a child.
Monster.
And also, I just also don't believe that that was that guy's first
No.
crime.
Fuck no.
Like, that's crazy to stab someone 200 times. That's a frenzy. Like, I
And
wonder.
a 9-year-old.
Yeah. I wonder, maybe behind the scenes, like this is all pretty recent. So maybe they've started to look into other
Potential
cases.
cold cases.
Yeah, of where he could be the suspect, but such a sad story.
That's terrible.
And she just sounded so cute, like just so cute and spicy, and I just, yeah.
That's awful.
People are fucked up.
Yeah, and they spin that story of the brother testifying. That's
I know.
something awful happened to the two of them.
Yeah.
And then he gets smeared for it. That's
Yeah.
terrible.
Like, it was basically two older boys were sexually abusing him and then demanded that he brought his sister into it.
Yeah.
And like, he was probably scared. He'd been groomed, and then the media spun it to be like, oh, he raped his sister, and it's like, yeah, he's already like carrying so much grief. And I also didn't mention, but he was actually adopted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he already felt like super at a place in his family, and then after that it was just so much worse. And it's just so sad. Like, the detail of him lying to his mom and saying that he didn't hear the screams just fucking killed me.
That's awful.
Like, he immediately stepped up to be like, I gotta take care of my mom. It's just so sad.
Good kid.
At only 14, my god.
And of course the fucking monster took the coward's way out. Fuck you, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking terrible.
So sad. Poor little Christine. She was so stinking cute. Well.
Damn. Stay spooky, True Northers.
Terror is closer than you think.
Yeah, that one was a bad one.
We are sad. Thank you for joining us for another episode of True North Terror. If you like our podcast, please help us grow by leaving a rating and review. If you have a story you want us to hear, or your own personal story you want to hear on the pod as a listener story, email us at truenorthterrorpod@gmail.com. Join us next week for another episode of True North Terror.